Well, welcome everybody to the December 4th ESS Finance Subcommittee meeting. We will start off by looking at the agenda. November 6th summary of subcommittee action. I'm looking for a motion to approve. Has everyone had a chance to review any changes, modifications to the minutes?
This is Geraldine. I'll make that motion to approve.
Thanks, Geraldine. Do I have a second?
This is Sherry. I'll second it.
Thanks, Sherry. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Amy is in the chat pod, aye. So we'll move on to the financial report. Start with the accounts receivable update with Lisa.
Morning, everyone. We have two items in accounts receivable. Samantha reports that checks are on the way for both of them. Both of these are a result of positive pay. If you're familiar with that, it means that any ACH transaction that comes into, in this case, the submitter's account, has to be approved, and they missed doing it by the deadline. So then the payment comes back to us that it is not approved. It does require them to send us a check and also to complete a form that we submit to Vericheck stating that transactions are allowed. So it's a good safeguard on their account. It does happen on occasion if somebody's out. So we don't have any concerns with either of these.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Do you have anybody have any questions for Lisa? Okay, we'll move on to December summary of November ESS payments.
All right, accounts payable invoices. You will see a few transactions here for Natalie, Travis, Jolyn. These are for mileage reimbursements for the ESS coordinating committee that was held in the office last month. And then Kelly Wallace for $1,260. This is for the technical contract for him to finish the migration. And then the Tyler Technologies, I just want to make sure I point that out. This wasn't included in the first packet I sent out. We did receive that invoice late, so I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that it did come in and it is on the report. Credit card transactions for November, nothing really abnormal here. We do have a couple purchases for monitors for the support team and then also the marketing coordinator. This was approved in both meetings in November. And then the LinkedIn invoice for $467.88. This was to post the application developer job listing. And then the same thing for Indeed down at the bottom for $206.12. And then the Survey Monkey, this is the annual subscription. It hits every November. I am waiting for a tax reimbursement on this one. So hopefully you'll see that tax come back to us next month. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I do have a comment I want to add. If you could go back to the previous report. So, sort of in the interest of transparency, when we dealt with the budget and the budget amendment at the prior meeting in November, one of the things that was approved was a recommendation that we had made to refresh the computing equipment for the administrative team. And this would include Lisa and Samantha, Corey, and Tristan. And so that amount was approved. So the amount was actually incorporated within the 2026 budget, not in the 2025 budget amendment. So we have an opportunity, and Samantha and Lisa should elaborate on this, to do some year-end purchases. And so the decision was made, which I approved, to go ahead and initiate those purchases. The computers are actually being purchased through our technology provider, Iowa Solutions, which uh, is a normal practice because they have better access to devices than you do if you go to Office Depot or Best Buy. And then the other part, appears on the next report, are purchases that are made through Amazon that were initiated directly by Lisa and our team. So we do have the resources within the 2025 budget. And basically what this means is at least a portion of this expenditure will occur this month instead of in January. And so I just wanted to be clear on that. So it does mean that money that we would have otherwise spent in January will not be spent because we already took care of it in 2025. So in case there were any questions about it, the purchases have been approved by the committees, and they are within the constraints of the overall budget, but they're occurring earlier than we originally anticipated. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood what was happening there. And other than that, I don't have any other comments.
Thank you, Phil, for the explanation. I think of it too as like every year, like the end of our fiscal year, I'm always like, okay, what else can I spend to spend down, to get a good deal or so I'm glad that oh gosh, Iowa Solutions was able to help us get some good discounts. So
There was one other thing I would mention in terms of the budget, and that is the expenditures for LinkedIn and Indeed related to the developer search. We did incorporate resources in the end of 2025 December budget for that position. So even though we haven't hired somebody yet, we do have money in the budget for that in 2025. So in case there were any questions about that.
do you think that, oh, I have a question really quick. So it equals about what, $674 for the job posting for the developer. Do you think that, well, hopefully with your interviews and stuff, that will be all that we need to expend for that position, hopefully?
Well, it depends. If we're successful and the candidates that we're looking at, we end up choosing one of them, then this will probably be it. If we need to go back out into the marketplace, or, for example, if we got to the end of the review process and just determined that we didn't find the right person that we needed, it's possible that we might decide to engage with a headhunter, as we have done in the past. And that would require some additional expenditure that would come out of that budget in 2026. So I don't know yet. I hope not. I hope we've got the right pool, and we'll see what happens.
Well, thanks, Phil. Does anyone have any other questions? If not, I will go ahead and make a motion for the November ESS payments. Do I have a second?
This is Susan from O'Brien. I can second that.
Thanks, Susan. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and I will pay Amy and Kelly both aye in the chat pod. So we'll move on to the December Fund 255 reimbursement invoice.
The Fund 255 reimbursement invoice came in at $45,546.93. Just a reminder, this is the $1 charge that's attached to every single document that's recorded in the state of Iowa. This is to help us regulate our payroll. These are the two payroll invoices that it is covering. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I'd ask for your acceptance and approval to submit this to the state treasurer's office.
Thanks, Samantha. Any questions or comments for Samantha? Hearing none, I would take a motion for approval for the Fund 255 reimbursement invoice.
This is Melissa. I can move to approve.
Thanks, Melissa. Oh, Amy.
Unless you want,
Oh,
you can do Amy and I'll second.
okay. Amy, we'll go ahead and give you the motion and Mel will second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to the October 2025 financial reports.
The Bankers Trust settlement account opened with the beginning balance of $0 and ended with the balance of $0. And the account was successfully reconciled. The Bankers Trust money market sweep account opened with a beginning balance of $1,236,032.98 and ended with a balance of $1,367,469.81. Interest rate that we kind of touched on a little bit in the last meeting did drop a little bit from interest rate cuts in October. So you'll start seeing the effect of our interest being decreased a little bit. It wasn't impacted so much in October. We were seeing around $3,400. It did drop a little bit, $3,100. But in November, you will see that drop a little bit more. I believe it came in around $2,700. And the reconciliation for the money market sweep account. And the drawdown account with a cleared balance of $80,695.20. Budgeted profit and loss for October, budgeted income came in at $171,037.41 against budgeted expenses of $118,470.89 with a net income of $52,566.52. Revolving income for the month came in at $3,464,890.18 with a total gross profit of $3,635,927.59. With revolving expenses at $3,459,252.51 with total expenses for the month at $3,600,774.13 with total net income at $35,153.46. So the main difference between the budgeted P&L that I showed you previously in this P&L would be just that little expense for back file redaction and then the depreciation expense of $22,604.75. Profit and loss 2024 compared to 2025. We have that money market interest up there, which isn't a huge, income source, but it does help. Service fees for the month were up 11.2%, so an extra $10,965 in service fees. The MOU services that were still in effect in 2024 have ceased. Those we are not charging those back to Iowa County Recorders Association currently. And then the local service maintenance account. So in 2024, we realized that we did not need to charge a couple counties for maintenance fees. So during that month, we were able to reimburse, I believe it was 4 counties last year. Mm-hmm. With a total gross profit up a little over $22,000, 15.3%. The bookkeeping, account manager, customer support coordinator, marketing coordinator, and the technical development team. I have these all highlighted here. Last year, we only had 2 payrolls in the month of October. This year in October, we had 3 payrolls. That's what those increases are in each position. And then also for the development team, last year Mancy was only part-time, and this year she is full-time. And then, of course, we are short 1 developer. Excuse me. The human resources, OASIS, and human resources Connectify. So in 2024, we were still with Oasis. We're now with Connectify. And if you can just look at the difference here, you can see the amount of money we're saving. So Oasis last year, we paid $1,043 with only 2 payrolls. This year, we're paying $1,058 with 3 payrolls. The policy coordinators have that highlighted just as a reminder that we did have a full-time policy coordinator last year, and this year that position is vacant. Then the technical consulting, we kind of talked about this earlier in the payment reports, but this is for Kelly Wallace. This is a technical contract. The local maintenance expense. So normally these invoices would be received in July. We did have 1 late one last year for this $3,149. And then just as a reminder, we are still waiting for, I believe, DevNet to send their invoice for the last 6 months of 2025. So hopefully we'll get that this month in December, and we can report that to you in the February meeting. Budgeted expenses. We're down just a little bit, 1.6% compared to 2024. And then net income up 88.1%, an extra $24,500 compared to 2024. Balance sheet as of October 31st. In the BT settlement account, $622,179.85. Just as a reminder, this is not the actual amount in the account. This is just the total of unreconciled transactions in our accounting software. With the money market sweep account at $1,367,469.81. And total assets and liabilities at $2,856,544.78. Journal entries for the month of October. These are mostly just my daily entries, moving money in and out of the money market sweep account and settlement account. The credit card statement credit card account opened with a beginning balance of $1,918.20 and ended with $1,921.85. The account was successfully reconciled. Fund 255 account opened with a beginning balance of $173,884.77 and ended with a balance of $169,815.45, with total receipts of $45,546.93. Was this consistent with the December Fund 255 reimbursement invoice that you approved earlier? And the reconciliation for the Fund 255 account. And profit and loss for the Fund 255 account with a negative $4,069.32. And the balance sheet with assets and liabilities of $169,815.45. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the financial reports.
I don't have any questions. Does anyone from the group have any questions or comments for Samantha? Pretty straightforward. Anyone? Okay, hearing none, I would take a motion for approval for the October 2025 financial reports.
This is Sherry. I'll move to approve.
Thanks, Sherry. Do I have a second?
This is,
Looks
This
like
is
Kelly.
Geraldine.
Oh,
Kelly.
sorry, Geraldine. It looks like
No,
Kelly
that's
already
fine.
got you in the chat. Kelly Spees. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll go on to the ESS financial and strategic review. Let's go to the metrics, I believe. We're down a little bit, darn it.
I had to unmute myself, so I will take this one. So, yes, it did go down, but historically, we always see or usually see a drop off in November. So, this is not unusual. I think it would be consistent with the pattern of the cyclical real estate activity, holidays, and all of that. If we follow pattern, we may see a bit of an uptick in December. Lisa shared with me some numbers that look fairly positive so far in December, but too soon to tell. Obviously, we have that holiday coming up, and that's going to, affect 2 business days. So we'll see what happens. But as of November, we were still above recent years, 22, 23, 24, below 2021, which was a high point, one of the high points anyway. And as I recall, looking specifically at the P&L statement, comparison month to month, or comparison against what we budgeted as revenue versus what we actually received. Revenue was actually about $10,000 or more above projections for the month of November. So when you adopted the budget amendment for 2025, we took more of a keep it conservative approach, and we were rewarded in some respect because revenue actually came in higher than the budget that you approved. So I don't have anything really strategic to say beyond that, except to look ahead to 2026. The budget put together based on some higher expectations for revenue, and that is that we're basically looking at seeing the revenue be about the same as in 2025, which would be at a higher level compared to prior years. That is allowing us to refill the vacancy for the developer position, and it will allow you to take into account that you'll be hiring a new director or project manager for 2026, and the budget that you approved allows for that to be a little bit more expensive in terms of office space and the position itself and paying for benefits and so on. So obviously that hasn't happened yet, so we really don't know for sure. But the typical pattern would be to take a look at what actual revenue is and make adjustments in the budget as necessary. So that's as about as strategic as I can get at this point. And then just moving on, I just would ask Samantha to go back and show the positions. And I just want to thank everybody for stepping up, and those of you whose terms were expiring, volunteering to continue on. We appreciate that very much. And we think that is mostly settled at this point. So way to go. See you next year. Okay. So other than that, the last item on the agenda is sort of the strategic review of procedures and other things. And Samantha, I would ask you to stop sharing, and would like to share my screen at this point. So give me a moment to do that. So, about a quarter ago, I guess is when this conversation started. A couple of things were happening. One of them was that Jamie Sturgill was working with a working group established by the association to review both the 28-year agreement and the policies and procedures. And also, sort of through a separate channel, there was a recorder who made a recommendation to adjust how we put the packet together because it may be difficult for some to download because it's so big, because our bank statement is so big. And so those two things combined kind of led to, well, if there are questions about procedures for the finance subcommittee or finance issues generally, then maybe that this is an opportunity to just take a step back and look at those things. So the main thing I'm sharing on the screen here is that the working group, and by the way, these notes were provided to me by Jamie. I have not edited these in any way, so they are as they are. And basically, there were two things that related to financial procedures that were identified. One was, does the finance committee actually help develop the budget, and are they involved in all the decision making? And then the second one was with respect to the adoption of budget amendments. Do we need to be more specific in outlining procedures? Jamie asked my thoughts on that, and her summary of my response to her is listed in the right-hand column that, do amendments for the budget, basically quarterly when the ESS committee meets. It could happen more frequently than that if there was a need to make an adjustment. But usually the adjustments are to do two things. One is to adjust budget to actual numbers, just to be realistic with our reporting. And then the other is to, if there is an adjustment that needs to be made, quarterly is a pretty good cycle to look at that, right? At least from my experience. So we don't have to wait too long to make a pivot or an adjustment if necessary. So I do have some additional things to add, but the big picture is that the practice of the staff has been to try and be as transparent as we can be. Just with the addition of Samantha to the team, for example, we're doing two things that we didn't used to do. You're seeing a comparison of the P&L statement year over year at every meeting, which we didn't actually used to do that. Sometimes when there was a need, we did it, but it was not a common part of our practice. And she's now made that a part of our routine. It's not written down as a policy anywhere, but it's just something that we do. The other thing that is new, and I give Samantha credit for this as well, is to report on the journal entries that we make each month. Now that has become a more prominent part of our activity, not just an end of year thing, because we're constantly moving money back and forth between the sweep account and the operating account. So those are two additional things that we've done to be transparent. And I think from an attitudinal perspective, I think we as a team, as a staff, are ready to answer any question at any time. So, for example, when you look at the payments that we make, either by ACH transfer through our bank or by credit card, you see every transaction that we make every month, and some of it becomes familiar to you, and we don't necessarily have to explain it every time. When new people come into the subcommittee, or maybe we have guests that are attending the meeting, if they were to submit a question, for example, in the chat box, we're happy to answer that.
Mhm.
So I think in terms of, if you go back through our agenda, do we ask the finance subcommittee to review our financial condition? Yes. Do we ask the finance subcommittee to review our transaction activity, to keep an eye on, is that in the budget? Does that seem appropriate? Should we do something different? Those conversations are opened up because we report it so transparently to you. And then in terms of strategy or strategic engagement, when we work on the budget, we try to be very clear with you exactly what we're doing and putting the budget together. We look at each line item separately. We clearly try to report as we go through the budget amendment processes to differentiate between things that are just moving naturally from a predicted amount to an actual amount, and then to talk about the things that you need to make adjustments. And it would be a true statement to say that staff, including me, do take the lead in terms of figuring it out, doing the math, putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and then making a recommendation to the subcommittee. You know, we don't have a subcommittee, and I wouldn't recommend this either, you know, where we're micromanaging it and involving a committee in the internal discussions about should we go right or left. But we do try to involve the members of the subcommittee in the background, the rationale, and make yourselves available to answer any questions so that you can change something if you want to. And that is your prerogative as a subcommittee. And then we have always treated the work of the subcommittee with respect to the budget as sort of the preliminary review that we would then take to the full ESS committee for approval. So that's sort of how we do business. So I think the main question for the subcommittee is, you know, are we being transparent enough? Are we explaining things to you clearly enough so you understand what is being done? Are you comfortable with the sort of trends that we report to you? And do you feel like we're being too liberal in our spending or our estimates, or should we be more conservative? We try to talk to you about those things. And at least it would be my hope that the members of the subcommittee and then ultimately the ESS committee have some confidence in, you know, what we're doing, particularly once we go through the audit process. And essentially the audit validates that all the things that we report to you throughout the year are actually true, right? So I have more to add to the discussion, but we really didn't receive, other than the specific things I mentioned at the top, we didn't really receive much input from members of the subcommittee or from the ESS committee about the question of are we engaging you in decision making, and do we need to do more, be more specific about certain procedures? So I just want to stop, and that's sort of the intro. I have more to show, but the question I put back to the members of the subcommittee: how do you feel about things, and what do you think should be changed? I'll be quiet for a minute.
I can start. I forwarded this to my district, and I didn't have any comments up to this meeting. I kind of look at the way that we do things with the finance subcommittee as we're the layer between before it goes to the governing board of the coordinating committee. So, and I think, you know, all of us as recorders, we keep an eye on our budgets. We rely on our auditor's office to help us through that, all of that every year, or your budget director, or you know, so we don't micromanage the auditor's office in our counties. So I feel very comfortable with the way that the policies and procedures are written. And, I think about the memos that you provide to us, with our budget amendments quarterly. We check in, county specific. We do a quarterly, we look in, we work with our auditor's office quarterly, and we go, make adjustments if needed. We talk, pretty openly with our budget director. And, if there's something that we're not going to spend, or we need help with something else, she helps us with that. So I think this is modeled very well, like I do things in our county. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So really open up to everyone else to talk. Oh, thanks, Kelly. Kelly did say she has to leave for an appointment. I think we are very well prepared for our meetings and presentations. Thanks, Kelly. Anyone else want to chime in? Mel, I see you
Yep.
unmuted.
Yeah, I was just waiting my turn. I send the meeting packets as well to the district, even though I'm the exec board's rep. Sherry and I kind of tag team. We just forward the meeting packets and let people know to respond. I did not hear anything back from our district about this. I think for transparency, I know the meeting packet is large, but it's out early and posted within the posting guidelines for everyone to review ahead of time. For transparency, I would not want to remove anything to make it smaller. I think errors would happen if we have bits and pieces here and there and it doesn't look good. So I think transparency, we need to continue to post everything. Budget wise, I feel like we're informed, there's good explanation. It's just like we're doing our budgets with the ebb and flow of things, sometimes, like I said, or you had said before, Stacy, about end of the year, like, hey, we can get a good computer deal now. Do we have the money? Let's spend it now. I mean, I think I appreciate Bill's guidance in reviewing. I feel like we're a part of it and we're a piece of the puzzle because we're reviewing it, but our recommendations are going to the coordinating committee. And I've been on coordinating committee long enough that we used to meet every month and we had to go over all of the bills and everything. And then we formed this subcommittee. And I feel like it's an extra set of different representatives reviewing things for our districts, separate from the coordinating committee. I feel like it's a good balance and a good layer. And I'm okay with how we're doing things.
Thanks, Mel. Anyone else from the group would like to chime in?
I would have to agree with everything that's been said already. I remember when I first came on this committee, we did not have as much information then as we do now, and a lot of that has to do with we're doing the accounting in-house now, and that's huge. And Phil is always willing to give information where we need it. Samantha will, if you need a little help on something, she does it. I I I think we're a good crew. I really do.
I would chime in, Amy, in the chat pod. We are lucky to have you, Phil, as a manager, and you and your staff are very thorough. I feel the same as Stacy, that we are not here to micromanage ILR. We are here to review and approve as another set of eyes for checks and balances. And Susan chimed in the chat. I feel like we're informed well, and the explanation is very good. I like the idea about sending to district, and I will start doing that. I still kind of a newbie, but if I have any questions, I reach out to Stacy for explanation. Always great information from ILR. So, any other comments or questions or?
Hey, it's Lisa. I'm going to jump in real quick regarding the monitor purchases that we made. I can tell you that we chose to purchase those directly from Amazon on a Black Friday sale, instead of purchasing them through Iowa Solutions, but also with their approval that they would be compatible with the new devices. So we saved a substantial amount of money by going through Amazon as opposed to Iowa Solutions.
I think that's great that we had them as a resource.
Wyatt
Yeah,
does a
double check.
really nice job for us.
Yeah, that's great. Any other comments?
I have some closing things I want to share with you, but I
Sure.
want to wait till everybody else is.
Sure. And this is exactly, that what the Policies and Procedures Committee wanted us to talk about as far as, or to think about, is there things that we could be doing differently? So, this it's good to review, and a lot of, on this committee, the 28E and Policy and Procedures Subcommittee, some of the things that the policies and procedures were written long ago. So, things have advanced, and there are a few things, that change, just like in our offices, things have changed. So I think it's good to dust them off and review them. So kudos to that committee and for Jamie for spearheading that. So that's all I can say about that. So go ahead, Phil. I feel like I'm rambling, so I apologize, guys.
No problem. And I'll just start by saying, thank you for your kind remarks. I know the staff really appreciates it. And just to kind of put things in perspective, we have thousands of transactions every day and every week. We have cash flow issues that, we just have to stay on top of, and that's why we have a bigger cash balance. There were some, who questioned whether or not we were doing that right, but we have to be ready to distribute funds, whether, even though the income for that particular period may not be as high as the amount of distribution, we have to be ready for that. So those are the things that we have tried to do. But having said that, I am not one to say that, well, we've always done it that way and we can't get any better. I think that there are things. So I took the assignment too and said, okay, if I were to change something, what should be considered. And I also need to say I'm not making a recommendation today. I'm just raising issues and things that you could consider doing differently, and that might be better. So let me share with you. Can you see the screen where it says possible changes?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
okay, great. So I went through the policies and procedures, and I went through the process of, okay, what could we do differently? What could be done better? And these are not in the form of a formal amendment, but the first one, it kind of addresses the issue of the bank statement, which, from my perspective, I actually sort of sympathize with those who may not feel the need to see the bank statement. Why do we make them download the whole thing? So if the committee, if the subcommittee or others were interested, one approach we could take that's different than what we do today is that we could post online a truncated version of the bank statement that shows the cover page, but not nearly every transaction. And maybe we could mitigate any concerns about that by just saying, if you're interested in seeing a full copy, let us know. We'll be happy to accommodate you. But it would substantially reduce the packet size and make it easier to download. And I'm not unsympathetic to that idea. There are also there's also an element of it, in a perfect world, there's certain bits of the bank statement that I might suggest maybe should be redacted before it gets published. And some of those relate to some of the account numbers that appear that I wouldn't say are high risk, but anytime you post any kind of an account number, somebody should maybe attempt to use that in a fraudulent way. But on the other side of it, it's just not practical for us from a time perspective to dedicate a staff person's time to go through and redact 150 pages bank statement. So kind of the middle of that potentially could be to, post a truncated version, make sure that the subcommittee gets the full version, and then make available upon request anybody who wants to see the full bank statement. Then we would kind of know who they are and maybe mitigate some of that risk a little bit. I'm not making that as a recommendation, but I am understanding of the comment that was offered to us, and it should be done. Okay, then moving on, went through the processes that we do, and kind of thought, are there some things that we do informally that maybe should be codified? Okay, so a few years ago, we said, it would be really good to have a chair, somebody to help facilitate the meeting, so it wasn't just Phil or Samantha talking. And so Stacy stepped up and said, hey, I'll do that. Well, there's nothing in the policies and procedures about that. And it would be very easy to just put a sentence in chapter or section 1.7 to say, hey, we're going to do that. And we're going to do it every year. And maybe even have a vice chair so that when Stacy's gone, we have somebody that is already designated to be the backup, not to make all the decisions, but to help facilitate the meetings. And I really think, the meeting of this group is much better than it used to be because you have a chair. I think they're just better meetings. So that's something to think about. Another thing that the current policy does not say anything about is who's on the committee. Now, by practice, we seek out representatives from every district of the association, but it doesn't really say that anywhere. And, the procedures for the full ESS committee are a little bit more clear in the policies and procedures. And I'm not going to go through all of these things, but we could add a little bit of additional formality to it. Another thing that really is a more prominent thing than we used to do is we've got Melissa and Natalie as the officers elected to be the treasurer of both the association and the and ESS coming to the meetings. That's a great idea. Facilitates more communication, more transparency, and so we should actually say that in the policies and procedures. I'm not going to go through all of these except to say that, hey, these are some things that maybe fit in the category aligning our written policies with what our actual practices are. Things like, we really don't have a strict rule on what a quorum is. Should we have one? Should we do that? If so, what should it be? There are some nuances in the use of reserve funds that maybe should be a little bit more clear. Now, we do not come and ask you for permission to spend money out of the redaction reserve to redact backfile documents. We just do it. And I think that's a good way to do it because that's what it's there for, right? On the other hand, we have had a practice of coming to you and the full ESS committee to ask for permission to spend from the software development and equipment reserve. That's just what we do, even though it's not written down anywhere. Should we change the policy to just reflect that position? And just while we were meeting today, I thought of three other things that we've talked about in the past that in some cases we've done. So one is, in some subcommittees or committees, say this is okay, and other groups say, hey, we shouldn't do it that way. But your practice is to allow a motion to be made by the chair. Okay? Stacia will often break the silence, the awkward silence, and say, okay, I'll go ahead and make that motion. Is everybody okay with that? Or do you think it should be different? If you're okay with it, maybe we should just say something in the policies that says that's okay to do. Okay? Another one is there is a section in the policies and procedures under the ESS committee that gives the ESS chair the power to make appointments to the subcommittees. And that's what we do. But it doesn't really say that anywhere else. And there's also a question of which ESS chair makes the appointments for the next year. Right now, by default, it's the current ESS chair, even though they're going to be leaving office in December. Should we change the timing of that and have the new ESS chair, after they're appointed, make that appointment? I'm not saying right, one way is right or one way is wrong, but you could do it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And then one last one that I was reminded of is occasionally in your subcommittee meetings, we talked about, well, should we approve the contract first or should we approve the budget first? Okay. And I've always found that kind of amusing because you really have to do both at the same time. But and we do it differently the way we do it right now, because if there happens to be a contract renewal on the agenda at the same time as a budget amendment, well, sort of the tendency of the subcommittee has been, well, let's do the contract first and then the budget. But if you are just doing a budget and you have things that are going to happen down the line, you're approving the budget first. And then at the next meeting or the meeting after that, you might approve a contract that relates to that budget. Either way is right or wrong. You have to look at everything always in totality. So I'm not recommending I wouldn't recommend a change in your policy. Leave it open-ended. Subcommittee, you can decide when you want to do it, okay? And make that judgment at every meeting. Sometimes it's going to work. Sometimes, the timing is just going to be different. And that's just the way it is. You hold us accountable by staying within the budget. So I'm going to maybe make a few edits to this because I know there are some typos and whatever, and send this to you and just say, hey, are any of these of interest? I appreciate greatly the vote of confidence, okay? I really do, because we work hard at it. But I'm not somebody that says, oh, we do it perfectly. We can never make any improvement. That's just not good. You always have to be open to change and improvement. So these are just some things that I want to leave with you to think about, and we can put them on the agenda for the next meeting and see if you want to go. If you wanted to do any changes, we could take them up at the January meeting in time for them to be presented to the full ESS committee at their February meeting, if you want to. So I think I'll stop there. Stacy, I just wanted to introduce these ideas, and thank you.
Right. Thanks. Since we're seeing this for the very first time, I do want to make a comment. In the comments, Renee asked, will the committee come up with a proposal to change the policy wording, or what is the next step? Good question. And yeah, Stacy does a great job of moving things along. Thank you. And Renee says specifically 1.7 parent 4. If you guys, Samantha, can you flip back to 1.7 Can you go back to page 160, 167 of the packet? Please. I don't mean to be. And that deals with the annual budget. The ESS Finance Subcommittee shall assist. I'll wait for you, Samantha. I'm sorry. While you're getting that, yeah. So 1.74, I guess we can all read, but about the annual budget. We assist the ESS Coordinating Committee with the development of an annual budget and any budget amendments. An annual budget and any amendments to the budget shall be reviewed and approved by the ESS Coordinating Committee.
Let me answer the procedural question first, because um, I would never. I think it's a staff job, to take care of the details. So, what we would do is maybe edit this document sort of as it is to describe what the issues are, and then if Stacy or members of the subcommittee came back and said, "Yeah, I'd really like you to consider making that change," then what we would do probably for your January meeting is actually put it in a formal amendment form at that time. So based on any direction or request that a committee member or subcommittee member wanted to make. With regard to 1.7 sub 4, I guess based on the discussion, I'm not sure what the proposed amendment would be.
I
I
don't know. Oh, go ahead.
I would say I would agree. I mean, I feel like the committee's already essentially assisting coordinating committee. That coordinating committee chair probably works with Phil. You're our project manager on budget items, which then goes to us and are approved by coordinating committee. I mean, without describing out every detail, I feel like we're already doing this, right?
Okay. Maybe I could recommend that, Phil, if you could email this that one page that you shared with us, the possible changes, and maybe add the 1.7 parent 4, and maybe Renee, if you want to send more some recommendations, and we can talk about it and decide more at our January meeting. I had a few other things that I was thinking about, like with chair and vice chair. Maybe January meeting would be a good time to do that every year. So then, not only does it start the year off, because we are calendar year, the financials are calendar year, and also it gives someone else an opportunity within the subcommittee to be a chair or a vice chair, so it's not the same person. You don't have to listen to me every single year and all that. And also I thought about something to think about is a term limit. I've been on subcommittee finance for quite a long time, and I'm sure I look at all the names up there too. You guys have too, that maybe it's something that you think about. Maybe there is something warrants as far as a term limit, or you can do it 3 terms or 1 term. That's something to think about as well for our group to recommend, and maybe our recommendations then go to the coordinating committee for any kind of change or modification in the policy and procedures.
Stacy, I think that's a good idea too. I think a term limit would be good, so that more people have a chance to, be on this committee. And the only thing, the one page that you showed, Phil, and it said, maybe having deputy recorders be able to be on there. Some counties don't have deputies. I'm one of those counties. So I don't know if there's a different term we can use other than deputy recorder. So that, mine, I guess, are clerks, but maybe just something, a different term than deputy, because some counties have deputies and some do not.
Great. And there's a few more comments. I don't mean to interject. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Geraldine. I didn't know if you were through.
Yes, I'm through.
Good. You're good. Okay, thanks. Anne added term limits for ESS committees would make more recorders well versed in the work done via ILR. And then Sherry, it forces others to get involved. Yeah, it does. And maybe that's something that we really need to um, take some time to think about, within your districts. So,
I will add the term limit to the list as well as a concept, and I would just note that the reason deputy recorder is used is because the current policies and procedures allow for deputy recorders to be on the ESS coordinating committee. It did happen once. It could happen again. So if there's a better term to use, that maybe would be more open, then I think a suggestion on that would be welcome. You may decide not to do that, and that's okay. But and I apologize, but I have to go to a job interview, not
yeah.
mine, but for somebody else. So I need to kind of step away.
Okay. Thank you, Phil. So getting back to the agenda real quick. Thank you, Phil. So is there any recommendation from our finance subcommittee that you would like to bring forward today for approval? I'm just trying to follow the agenda. Or if anyone else would like to chime in or talk, or did we answer all the questions or concerns or comments?
I'd like to read what Phil had put together. I mean,
Mhm.
my office is all open, so it's better for me to have it to sit and look at and read. Yeah, I'm old school. I'm going to print it and I'm going to sit and read it because that's better for me to look at.
Okay,
Old school is not a bad thing.
right.
My brain's not stuck there, but paper's good.
Yeah, and in the chat pod, Susan said, I would like to review also. So is the committee okay with adding this finance procedures review to the January agenda? And then we will have some time to regurgitate and process this a little more. And if you would like to bring some recommendations to that meeting, we can do it at that time. Is everyone in agreement for that?
Yes.
Okay. It looks like Mel okay, that sounds great. Anything else for the good of the group for today?
I think we're
Well,
pretty awesome.
Huh?
I think we're pretty awesome. And
I
I
think
love
we
listening
are
to
too.
you.
Oh, well, our next meeting is January 8th at 9 o'clock. Merry Christmas to all of you guys. Thanks for all you do, and thanks to the ILR staff. You guys rock it. So have a good rest of your week. Stay warm.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank
Merry
you guys.
Christmas.